Good day, everyone. Sound Espressivo is a new generation of classical music competition which offers contestants to perform in live broadcasts from their own location anywhere in the world. Sound Espressivo panel of judges represents top performing artists and music educators from around the globe. Sound Espressivo competition offers an unprecedented array of awards for musicians. Welcome to our podcast. Meet the judges, music promoters, music managers, and music educators.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressivo Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.
Yes, we prepared virtual stage for everyone who is ready to take it. And one of the very important parts of this competition is the prizes which it offers to the musicians. The prizes are brought to the Sound Espressivo competition by management companies from all over the world. And today we have a privilege to host three incredible people who run the management companies in two continents, one in the United States and the other one from United Kingdom, to our program. And please welcome our first guest today, Christos Vayenas. Christos, welcome. It's great to see you. It's an honor to have you. It's a great pleasure to have known you for a while. Your company is an incredibly forward-looking company. You are a pianist and improviser. You're a musician and performing artist. Your background is in philosophy, aesthetics, and incorporating broader experience with arts, not only performing arts. I would like to introduce Christos to our audience and to our future contestants with his own performing art, with his own piano playing. Enjoy. That was absolutely gorgeous. Christos, this is incredible to know that a musician and a pianist, you are also a successful music manager. That's quite a change. Musicians taking stage in both capacities as performers and as a driving force behind the careers of themselves and other musicians. You run not one but two companies. The Group Muse, of which you're a director of music development, is offering incredible prizes to the contestants of Sound Espressivo. And Group Muse is one of the most forward-looking music management companies in the world right now. It provides performers with unprecedented stage, and the sheer numbers of virtual concerts that Group Muse produced is staggering. It's just absolutely staggering. 350 virtual concerts since March. Is that really 350?
Yeah, I think it's rounded up, but it's close to that. Yeah, it'll be that probably by next week.
Unbelievable. And your community of people who attend is just as impressive in numbers. 150,000 concert goers who return to your events over and again, and people are saying there's not enough audience for classical music. Unbelievable. Bravo. It's incredible. Many musicians and managers found themselves very unprepared for the crisis and for the changes and for the closures of the venues. But your company found a way forward from which we would like to learn. Can you please share a bit about your company, the philosophy behind, and the work you do?
Sure. Yeah, and again, thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to connect today. So, speaking about Group Muse was founded around 8 years ago. Sam Bodkin, our founder, basically started it through living room concerts, through basically being in college, hanging out at an apartment. His roommate happened to be a phenomenal pianist, and they got together and basically among friends, college kids, kind of partying, hanging out. Music started to, come up a lot, and so they had these concerts. And what was happening is there was a certain kind of connection, a certain kind of intimacy in the room. It was really allowing a very different context for classical music to be experienced by a generation that normally wouldn't be in that situation. They wouldn't be people going to the concert hall. Chamber music obviously is not a new idea. It's a very old idea. Mm-hmm. But I think Group Muse basically, throughout those 8 years, the reason why we built up such an audience, particularly around younger people, is because we've basically renewed the cultural context for chamber music, for experiencing classical music in an intimate setting that is as much about community and connection with each other and with the music and with the artists as it is about just, the culture and the art form of classical music. So I think what happened was we basically just started a kind of subculture that has grown, and I think it serves a certain need. It's one way to serve a certain need for people who want to connect and have a meaningful experience, and also have the opportunity to experience craft, an art form up close, where you're sitting on the floor and there's a cello next to you and you have a glass of wine or whatever, and that's a very it's not something that people are used to experiencing. So I think that context is really what it allowed the organization to grow as much as anything. And also, it transforms the context of the music. It allows it to be more about storytelling, more about the inner experience of the music, and it allows the musicians themselves to grow into that and maybe discover more about themselves, what kind of music they want to play, they want to share. Maybe they write their own music, maybe they improvise. All these things are welcome in that space. So it just provides a rich space for classical music to grow, and also to just be what it is without any social that more traditional and institutionalized at this point way of perceiving and playing and experiencing classical music.
That is incredible. And as an artist who had experienced the group music setting, I have to say it's a different experience, which I personally, as an artist, absolutely love. Because this does bring out more of a human personality of artists. We're my, I mean, I'll get criticized for saying that, but I believe we as people and artists are much more than the pieces we play. And the smokescreen barrier between this big stage and the big audience, and the lights being turned off there, and people are supposed to sit straight and not go to the restroom, all of that, had been developed historically to improve the experience. But at this point, it's diminishing the people on stage. And yeah, go.
Yeah, I mean and I, for me as a musician, the clip that you played before, which was here, it looks similar.
Yes.
Like, I'm an improviser. I mostly improvise. That was an improvisation, and I've never really had a place on the stage in the more traditional classical music environment. So that was just to me, I needed to create a cultural setting for myself as well, to share my music in, but to me, it seems, so I don't have the experience of playing, on stage with an orchestra behind me or something. But it is a very different, I mean, I can tell through experience that it is very different. And yeah, I mean, I feel like it really allows classical music to grow and to resonate with people in ways that are just more direct, more meaningful, more about storytelling, about something that everyone can relate to emotionally, that in that more formal setting, like you said, there's a barrier often, and I'm sure it causes a lot of anxiety for the musicians as well, because it's not really a natural setting for a lot of music to occur in. It's just like a museum, right, where the paintings are in this kind of just kind of sterile environment. I'm not saying all concerts are like that in the hall, but
well, musicians usually try to make them not, but it's an effort, and the connection has to be built. And of course, it's a fabulous environment to play in a huge concert hall with the orchestra behind. And I don't want to minimize the value of that experience, but what group music is providing to the artist is an alternative, different way, which is just as beautiful and just as powerful in its own virtue. I would like to ask about your team, because your company, in the changed environment, stepped forward and was able to not just survive barely, but actually thrive in the new environment. Who are your colleagues, and how did you create that concept, and how do you do that?
Yeah, so Group Muse has always been an online platform in the sense of it's sort of it's a terrible, I hate to use these analogies, an Uber for classical musicians. But it was run by, if you wanted to host in your home, you sign up as a host, you pick a date, and then all of a sudden musicians who have signed up on the platform start proposing programs to you. You say, oh, string quartet, that sounds cool, I'll have that. And then it goes on the site, and everyone who's signed up to attend can see those concerts, can sign up, can see each other who are attending, so on and so forth. So we already had a kind of platform that you could say was, in that sense, forward-thinking for how to use a technology to facilitate house concerts in a way that they can grow in any city. It's kind of like a template. So we were already operating differently than most classical music or music in general, but in this case, classical music organizations. We didn't have a physical space, that we'd have to worry about. It's really a team of 6 people, and so...
That's unbelievable. I want to take your point. Of course, there's rightful complaints about the venues being closed and this and that and another, and the seasons being postponed, canceled. It's terrible. But people also complain about not enough money in the industry. Your company was able to amass 150,000 returning viewers, and it's only 6 people who are running it.
Right. And, and again,
This
part
is
of
very
that-
economic, I gotta say. I don't
Well,
know of any
sure.
concert venue which has 150,000 subscribers and which runs on 6 people's team.
Right. Well, because the advantage there is it's a platform. It's kind of like, I don't know, like Wikipedia has a small team, but there's a lot of information on there. So it's if you host in your home, then you're offering up a venue. So we don't have there's a lot of things in the pre-COVID times that we just didn't have to worry about controlling. We had our parameters in the platform, and we're kind of stewards of that process, and also obviously did some community development in the cities that we were active in. But so that number is really just the totality of those last 8 years of people participating and being on our mailing list and consistently attending events and so on and so forth. But once we switched into the COVID era and decided to take everything online, again, we were able to do that very quickly because there's not a lot of red tape in our organization. It's pretty much us sitting there going, all right, let's do it. And so, once we did it, then it became a lot of work because then it is 6 people having to deal with customer service, building an infrastructure for streaming, dealing with all of the complications of all of these people who were not used to being online, to navigating around using Zoom, YouTube, and then of course obviously working with the musicians on the tech side and using our limited budget to evolve and sort of retrofit our platform to do something it was totally not designed for. So there's been a lot of, it's been very challenging. It's not like it's like smooth sailing. It's been I've literally not worked this much in my life in the last 6 months. So it's been crazy. But again, because we're a small team and we're already kind of adaptable, we just went through this kind of crazy process, which is continuing. But I think that was really why we were able to thrive, was that we are open-minded. We don't have an infrastructure that takes long to shift, and we're all people who are willing to kind of take that leap, and we also have that whole culture behind us. So we didn't just build a platform that without an audience. It's like the opposite. We had the audience, and then we had the community musicians. So we just had to figure out how to morph to create a platform that could allow them to continue to stay active, and that's basically what we did.
That's incredible. I would like to add two more guests to our discussion. 2 ladies from Polyphony Arts from the United Kingdom, and their agency, their platform is also involved in doing extraordinarily progressive work for musicians and performing arts. And I'd like to welcome Kitty Beardsworth to our program. Hi, Kitty. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is wonderful. And Kitty, you're the founder of the Polyphony Arts, and this is the music management company in the United Kingdom. You come from the musical family. You have worked with the performing arts organizations and artists all your professional life, so you know the good and the bad of it from inside. And you are taking an approach to the music performance scene with an innovation too. You're creating a community of artists, venues, and promoters who are finally able to work together as a team. I would like to juxtapose that to a more conventional environment where there are tons of expectations from musicians to the managers and from managers to musicians, and there is a lot of disconnect and a lot of dissatisfaction which is going on traditionally in those 2 aspects of the performing industry. But your company provides incredible resources to artists, both educational and management, which are aimed at empowering musicians to thrive and succeed rather than wait for things to happen to them. And I'd like to also introduce Margaret Pinder. Margaret, thank you for joining us today.
Hello there. Hello, Anna. Hello, Christos. Nice to see you.
And Margaret you're also a musician, a double bass player, and now I'm gonna have trouble with the next list. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to look at the script because this is quite remarkable and unusual. Margaret, you're a published writer. You're a performing comedian. You are a former elected town mayor, former faculty of Harvard University, a specialist of international corporate law on Wall Street. And I haven't even started.
Anna, it reads so much better than it feels, trust me.
But you really have done that. And
Yeah.
all of that incredible resources, all those amazing experiences you're bringing into the performing arts, and you're reshaping the whole attitude towards the performing artists and the institutions involved with facilitating the concerts. Welcome, ladies. It's my tremendous honor to host you on our podcast. And I want to just ask you, would you please describe the polyphony arts, your fundamental principles of approaching the performing arts management?
Absolutely. So I founded Polyphony Arts about 2 years ago when I came back from maternity leave to the job that I had at the time, and decided that wasn't working for me anymore in my new situation. And I'd worked in the arts my whole career, mainly in employed jobs, and so I had a great network of people that I knew and musicians and so on. And I sort of went back to work and felt like, it was all a bit tricky. And one of the groups, there's actually one of the judges on this competition, the New London Chamber Ensemble, I knew them from the work I'd been doing. And they knew that I was feeling a bit unhappy in my role, and they said that they were looking for a new manager and would I like to do that. And so I had a big long think about it for many months, and in the end I decided that to move out of employed work and to go freelance. And I started working for them, and I also started running a music festival local to where I live, and that was what I did for about the first 6 months or so. And then the more people that learned that this was the kind of thing that I was doing, it started to grow, and then it grew to the point in which I couldn't manage it on my own anymore. So I developed a team, I developed some branding which I didn't have before, and all that kind of thing, and really it grew quite organically out of that, and I feel very lucky that that was possible. And I think that because of the way this came about, it maybe wasn't destined to be super traditional even from the start. So from my career beforehand, I was aware of what it meant to be an agent and how agents work with promoters, and I'd worked as a promoter or somebody who books music very frequently in various roles and for various venues and so on. So I sort of came into it with this dual understanding of both sides of the industry. But also then to go freelance in the way that I've just described leads to maybe a lot of sort of sympathy for people who aren't finding the industry the easiest thing to be part of. And as I started to develop the company and develop the team, and I became more able to explore the kind of areas that I really wanted to, I became more able to see the areas of support that musicians weren't getting from the industry. So yes, when you have an agent, it's a great thing and it's very supportive, but in some cases it can be quite there can be quite a disconnect. So you maybe don't understand what your agent is doing, or maybe your agent is trying very hard to sell you, but you're not telling them what you're doing, so that's making it more difficult. So there's lots of ways in which that relationship can work really well, and also lots of ways in which that could be better. Likewise, music organisations and promoters and the places that book musicians to do things, I think that I've seen the good and the bad with that as well. I've seen how difficult it can be for musicians to work on a kind of touring basis if they have any kind of families or young families or caring responsibilities and so on. So I just became really aware of all of the little ways in which people were being left behind from the industry, and I wanted to tackle that more. So now Polyphony Arts is in a place where it offers sort of fairly traditional artist management and project management services, but also a whole range of other things. We have an online course, we have a strategic coaching program, we have kind of small things that we can do to help musicians, like say they're working on a specific project and they just need a bit of help with that, we can just kind of dip in and out like that. And we have a membership program so people can essentially manage their own careers as they want to, but
I I want to
have
pick up
something
on
to
that.
back up with- yeah.
So you are sharing the secrets of the trade with the musicians, and you really are aiming at empowering musicians to be their own managers. And all of us here, I dare to say, we are all musicians and managers too. I'm a pianist, I'm a professional performer and a teacher, but I run my own music school. And now I'm co-founder of the virtual concert halls and of this project Sound Espressivo, which is a managerial work, of course. Christos, you're a pianist. You have been managing really substantial, for a substantial amount of time of your career. And Margaret, you're a bass player, and you are an arts management. Is that a new species?
Well, the more I am one of those people, the more I meet those people. I was at a conference last Saturday, and there were loads of people who were offering coaching to, like, business and career coaching to musicians like I do. And I thought, oh, great, because I thought I knew them all sort of three of them that weren't me. So it's great to hear that there is actually, I think, an emerging sector for this, and I know that from conversations with larger agencies that this is something that they've been trying to look at as well, and it is how what's falling between the cracks. There are certain things that work really well, but what isn't, and so I think this is definitely a time for it, and I think that the COVID-19 and the lockdown situation across the world has really highlighted that. And in a place where people are facing, big decisions about whether they stay in music careers at all, I think there's never been such an important moment to have access to professional support for individuals.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's quite interesting is that this is one area where actually the bigger management agencies are behind the curve. And in fact, it's those of us who are smaller and able to be agile and adaptable and understand this kind of hybrid offering. It's sort of the old Darwinian kind of keep moving or die. And I think that certainly COVID has really foregrounded the need for those kinds of skills, that kind of agility, that kind of flexibility, that sort of responsiveness.
And if I can just say one more thing as well about musicians who are also managers, I think what I'm particularly keen on, it's not to replace music managers. I mean, my online course is called Become Your Own Agent, and when I launched it, loads of people said, hang on, aren't you an agent? Why do you want to go become your own agent? You don't want to do yourself out of a job. And I think it's everybody, no matter what you do, your career is always going to be better if you're more engaged in it. And I think the aim of what I'm doing is not to replace anybody's role in any other thing. I think when you really understand the role of an agent, you can really understand whether you want one or not, what kind of an agent you want, what you want them to do for you, and what you want to do for yourself, and how that relationship can work, and it be much more symbiotic. Because I believe that the big secret that agents don't tell is that it doesn't really matter how good you are, you can only sell an artist that's saleable. So I think a lot of faith is put in agents that they can just kind of go and do anything, and it is not the case. We need to be working with artists to be able to get the most for them.
This is incredibly important because it seems like this current situation had prompted people to take a more critical look at all of the smoke screens between different parts of the music industry. Just like the big concert halls, which turn off the lights and put a very noticeable, I can feel it, a screen between me as a performer and my audience in the dark. Same thing, there had been a disconnect and some ice between the managers and the musicians. Now we're breaking this ice and merging it, and the need for that is so obvious and so it's just so clear. Like Margaret said, the more agile, the more open-minded, more able to adjust groups of people are the ones which are more suitable for this situation. And the situation is not here for 2 weeks. We already know that. It's longer. Christos, I see you nodding. Please pitch in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I resonate with what everybody's saying, and have completely been my experience as well. And even with working with artists, I mean, I've at this point onboarded around 200 musicians to get them set up for streaming. And, they maybe look at our platform as like, oh, if I just get on GroupMuse, then like everything's going to be like great, like everyone will show up to my concerts, as where you kind of have to explain, like, you know, you have your own following and support, and this is an opportunity to really create a container around a performance during this time. That's what we've kind of created. But but I'm here to empower you, to empower yourself, and the platform is here to empower you. And so the more effort and energy you put into not only learning your music, but, and obviously if you're a classically trained musician, these barriers also are like the academic institutional education you get, where you just like, if you just learn to play Mozart really well, then you're good, you know. And then it's like you get out and the bubble bursts, and then you're just like, what what is this, you know? And most people go through an existential crisis. Maybe a lot don't continue as performance focused in that sense. And so that kind of integration of culture and one's profession, where, you know, to me, at least in some ways, I think group music has helped create at least the beginnings of a more natural cultural context for this art form. But it requires the musician to grow and evolve too, because they've been educated in a very limited way. And so as a person, they need to grow and evolve and learn how to, again, like if you're just, maybe you're having your first house concert and people are sitting very close to you, you know, you can't just pretend they're not there. Like, you have to actually be comfortable interacting. And then it's like, you know, you get into your romantic mind of 19th century Paris, where you're sitting around and Chopin's at the piano and George Sand's there. You know, it's like a poet is, and you have this kind of natural experience. So to me, helping artists, musicians understand that the more they step into themselves and develop the ability to connect with others and look at it fundamentally that way, which you could call marketing as well, but that the more they own themselves in that way, as artists, as people, the more successful they'll be at this approach of something that's there to empower them, versus just getting handheld to the opportunity and getting the paycheck and all of that. Because that clearly, that model is not in existence right now. So
it's not, that model is not working. Margaret,
No.
Can we get your perspective? You probably have the most experience with big corporations and that.
I think it's interesting that thinking about what Christos is saying, that actually theatre is ahead of music in this one. They've already, ages ago, they broke down the third wall. They understand about different ways of just connecting with audiences in very radical ways. And I think that's quite political, and I'm quite a political person, both with a big P, but in this context a small p, because Christos, what you're talking about is a kind of cultural politics.
yeah,
And it's the kind of cultural politics of the concert hall versus the intimate setting, the politics of how musicians relate to their audience, how they find their audience, how they bring their music to the audience. And I think that's there are some really interesting conversations happening around that right now. In other areas where I'm political, and this is where I love working with Katie, is that I like looking at sort of the sort of politics of the industry. And I think, and I love Katie's work because she's very radical in her thinking. I mean, she does the conventional stuff, but she's very radical. And also, you know, and I'm quite radical in my thinking. And I feel quite militant about now is the time for musicians to actually become politicised with a small p. I mean, we actually saw it in the UK the other week, that a group of how many musicians got together on Parliament Square and performed outside Parliament Square, because the support for the arts in this country under COVID is just abysmal. You know, we're seeing a situation where we're talking about up to a third of all musicians potentially leaving the profession, which is just tragic. And I think this is where now is a chance to really look radically at the kind of policy behind how the arts is funded as well, because obviously arts rely a lot on philanthropy. They rely a lot on government funding as well. Those in England, we have the Arts Council, and I think there are a lot of questions to be asked, and there's quite a lot of very interesting work and very important work to be done in saying, when we come out of this, nobody will go back to the way it was before, and we've got to make sure it's better. Now, there are lots of ways in which there are going to be an awful lot of things we've lost, But we really need to fight hard to build a better, more sustainable model. And that's a bigger picture in terms of funding, venues, all those things I was saying about how we find our audience and how musicians bring their music to the audience. But also, I think, in terms of the smaller, the kind of things that Katie's also been talking about, like how musicians who are parents, how have they managed? There's something we've been talking about recently about the kind of Me Too within the music industry, and there's the podcast that we've started. We're actually going to, Katie's going to be doing an interesting interview on that. I think when people start to think that politics with a small p is actually hugely important, and musicians they can't just play within their bubble and think about their own careers. They've got to think about themselves as part of a wider, larger industry, and they have responsibility for how that industry is formed and how that industry is taken forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I really resonate with that as well. And honestly, again, I think that's what I've seen what I'm doing as I'm at this point, there's a lot of musicians who, the good news about our platform is that musicians are actually earning more right now on virtual concerts than they were in in-person concerts, which is interesting. But just realizing that I'm really, at this point, there's a lot of people, a lot of musicians that depend on the platform that we're using or have been consistently using it. And to me, it's part of a larger cultural movement that I'm serving. I'm in service of this greater process, and I'm in service of the values, representing those deeper values, more humanized values, forward thinking, as everyone's articulating. To me, that's what inspires me every morning to work, is the fact that this is something greater than me that I'm in service of, that it's very important. And to me, that's really how art and music, and anyone who's inspired as an artist, I think, feels that way in one way or another. There's something greater running through you that you are, you're connected to, but also in service of.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also want to add that in the context of thinking about how we can all become more politicised with a small p and more it feels important to say in this context that I'm a huge believer of collaboration over competition, and I know this is something Anna and I have discussed many times, and I know in the context of a podcast about your competition this is particularly relevant.
Don't we hear from everywhere we hate competitions? Musicians hate competitions, teachers hate competitions, students hate competitions, performing artists hate judging competitions, managers hate competitions, and here we are, all involved with the Sound Espressivo competition. Thank you for bringing this up.
Well, I don't think I've ever once in my career come across a situation where competition had any benefit whatsoever. I don't mean a competition as in a competition, but as in competition between parties that appear to be too close or whatever, where that's actually been beneficial and where collaboration couldn't have been a better option. And I really do believe in that. I think that I now have been in music for long enough to say that over a decade without ever finding a situation where competition was actually necessary at all. And that's one of the things that I love about this competition, and by that I obviously mean a competition in which people compete, is that it all seems to be about the competitors' personal development and not so much about pitting them against each other, but more a platform in which they can present their own skills and uniqueness, which I think is fabulous.
That's the goal, to build a platform for musicians to have a job fair. In a job fair situation, there is an element of a competition, yet it's a competition on a different level, in a different context, where everyone is presenting their own and not necessarily competing on the same terms, but competing for the attention of their own uniqueness. That was the idea.
Well, that's what you get if you have a competitive job situation. If you have high level candidates, they may bring different things to the table, and ultimately it's about the person who's offering the job deciding which one of those they value the most for their company, not necessarily which one is the overall best. And by having so many different judges and so many different potential prizes, it's much easier to sort of pair good things together rather than being like, well, this is better than this and this is better than this.
Yeah, exactly. We're basically here, with the help of over 200 people who pitched in creating this concept, we're trying presenting the categories, presenting the judges, presenting this whole community of musicians and promoters. The idea is to get away from comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, because in the art there is no such a thing as two apples. It just does not exist.
I just have a maybe a relevant personal kind of anecdote of this. Is, you know, I grew up. My older brother is also, he's a professional jazz musician, but I grew up in a way where I was around this kind of watching, you know, as a younger person, the track of going into school, and then like this kind of template being kind of put around you of like the right way, and you do it the right way, and you're judged upon that way, and just that, not that sense of like, because for me, I'm like, well, that's not the way that works for me. So does that mean I don't have a place? Like, I can't do anything? As we're like, even with this idea of the competition, which, you know, I'm sure we can get into, of like the different archetypes or ways of relating. Because like, I remember being at a club in New York, and this community musicians I'd been grown up around, so I knew most of them that were in the room, listening to this new jazz pianist who came to town, who's kind of like the new guy. And he sat down and he played. And I just remember this memory of all the pianists I knew in the audience go, oh God, he's so good. And they were just like miserable. And I'm like, something is wrong with this picture. Like, this is not, like that should make you want to go home and play your music. Because there's a place for your music too, you know? And that different spirit of a more dynamic structure and ecosystem, there's a place for everyone that you can carve out for yourself, which is, again, you carve it out for yourself, rather than relying on this one thing that says you got to check these boxes or you're like just screwed, you know. And to me, that the spirit of this competition is very interesting because of that, which I like, you know, because like you said, it's more about just you being yourself and others who might resonate with that.
Exactly, that was the idea behind, for example, not requiring any repertoire.
Right.
The only requirement for the repertoire here is pick what represents you best. Correct. Yes, and Margaret, please, Katie.
Yeah, I think one of the things, just to come back again to talk about just what's happening online, is that we've gone through a bit of a learning curve. You know, we've gone through quite a journey under COVID, because of course suddenly performance stopped, and everyone's scrambling to do stuff online. And of course it was all different quality, and there was people, you know, rasping away in their front rooms, and you know, there was so much free online. Some of it was, you know, good, some of it was not so good, and it's bringing people, trying to create a culture. Well, we've all seen it, we've all been there. We're now trying to create a culture. What you're trying very much to do, Anna, is to create a culture, and also obviously group music is doing, is actually to try and create a culture where we can actually do things online, and it's not second best, it's a different thing. And I think group music is doing performance. By having a competition, you're expanding that sense of things that can be done online, because there's been a lot of sniffiness about it. Oh, well, online is, you know, it's not the same as live performance. Yeah, we know that. You know, people who are sniffy about online music, it's like, you listen to classical music in your car. You know, I don't find any of you going, oh my God, music on the radio, what an absolute travesty, this is a terrible thing. And it's just, what's the difference? What is the difference, please?
That's incredible.
And so I think this is fantastic, because, as I said, with you doing a competition, we're expanding the possibilities of what can be done online. And how many artists would love to be able to play to an audience from around the world? I mean, we did an online guitar concert, didn't we, Katie? We had 5 fantastic guitarists from around the globe playing, and then they all had a conversation afterwards. And I said, where would you get that? That you had these 5 world-class musicians not only playing on the same platform, but then sitting and chatting amongst themselves about their music and their performance. You know, it was absolutely, that was something that could hardly ever happen. And if it could happen, what would the audience be? This big.
This tiny. And what would the budget be? I suppose that would be possible, but you would have to pay for the tickets and hotels and arrangements and all of that. And people would have to take off time from their other obligations and jobs and carve out a week to travel. I mean, travel is great, but it becomes a lot of it becomes a burden if you're doing traveling to every concert you have to go to. And this way you don't really have to do that. You can connect, and currently the technological platforms are already providing phenomenal sound. I love what you said. Yes, listening to the music in a car is probably not as good as what you hear on Virtual Concert Halls platform. That's the platform which is providing a stage, a virtual stage to our contestants of Sound Espressivo. And Virtual Concert Halls by now produced over 65 full-size programs with musicians from all over the world. Grammy Award winners, Los Angeles Opera, members of the Symphony, National Symphony and Washington Opera, and New York Philharmonic, and faculty members of best conservatories in the world step on this stage. They trust our hands to provide the sound and the picture which truthfully represent their art. So the contestants will be sharing the stage with some of the best, most renowned artists in the world. And I would like to introduce the Sound Espressivo's beginnings. This is how it started. So Virtual Concert Halls is a virtual stage built by musicians for musicians. The team of Virtual Concert Halls is teeny tiny. Started with just 4 people who were dreaming. March 14th, venues closed, our seasons crushed. And the 4 of us said, we just love music and performing, too much to give up. Let's dream. And now the platform is serving musicians and expanding, and so honored and happy to collaborate with professional musicians and managers and companies which are seeing potential in there. Do you all think, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you all think the virtual performing is new, but here to stay after everything is open?
Yeah, I mean,
well,
I
yeah.
could say yes. Yeah, I mean, there's just too much momentum and infrastructure like that. You know, humans are creatures of habit, right? For better and worse. And I think we've watched how it can be for worse during this time, but for better, it's this. The momentum of this. I mean, there's been so many people who have said, "Please don't, please keep this." I've never had the opportunity to even have these kinds of experiences and share them with people around the world, and maybe people who are living on other sides of the globe right now, and they get to, like, there was one street that they said, I've always wanted to go to a group music concert with my girlfriend, and I live in Canada and he lives in, I think it was Mexico or something, and it was like, now we're able, we're able to, but just that, the connections, the networking, the amazing artists I've had the opportunity to develop personal relationships with. It's kind of like wartime friends, where you're going to see them later and go, hey, remember when we were fiddling around with all that tech stuff? And, or it's like there was one with a really renowned violinist, and afterwards, Margaret, as you were saying, we do the Q&A, and, we have a couple hundred people in Zoom, and then you say, are there any questions? And the 7-year-old girl just asked them, would you give any advice to someone who wants to play the violin? And, that would have never happened.
Play the double bass.
That opportunity to, like you say, you play in a concert hall. This person has a touring schedule. They're on the stage. That's it. Now they're at home, they're going to try something new, and then they get to connect with people in a totally different way. So there's so many silver linings with this that, as you're saying, it's its own thing, and it's certainly here to stay. It's not a substitute. It's just another dimension, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that I think it adds something that actually can add a lot of clarity to how musicians feel about their careers in general, which we touched on earlier, which is this idea of being you and your own artist and your own performance, and that not having to be one of a million of this, that, or the other, you know, whatever type of musician you identify as, but actually being okay to be exactly what you are. And I think that's something that I find when people talk to me about how I can help them, that is absolutely fundamental to every conversation that I have. Can I put this on social media, or will people think it's unprofessional, or will they think I don't, you know, if I do education work, will people think I don't know about really, really good music? Or, you know, there's just, I mean, that's just two examples, but there's just so many iterations of that same conversation. And what I keep telling people is that their own personal networks are absolutely vital. Like, everybody, I think, feels at some point or another that everyone else knows everyone and they don't, and somehow that's holding them back. But actually, I mean, it is sort of a sad fact, I think, about our industry, that who you know is super important. And I'd love to say that it wasn't, and that it wasn't a nepotistic industry, but it really is. But that doesn't mean that you can't get to know people, and that you can't develop your own network, and that you can't have a place within that. And I think that online music is giving people the opportunity to do that in ways that they couldn't have done before, because getting concert platform opportunities is really hard. And when you do get them, if you don't feel completely confident in your own personal whatever it is that you want to share, you might not share it, you might hide it, you might try and be something else. And online, the kind of potential for, I don't know, variety of platforms, variety of performances, volume of stuff online, it just and just the variety, I think, gives way more opportunity for that.
And the variety has a place to exist, because there is a variety of audience which also has access to all this at a click of a mouse. And we don't keep audience captive anymore. Virtual stage, you can leave at any time, and you can have 20 different concerts open in your browsers, and you can browse all of them. So the artists are captivating their audience through something much more in-depth, much more personal. Otherwise, people are just not going to watch it.
Totally. And, you know, we know as concert promoters, with the concert promoter hat on, we know that the very easiest way to sell tickets for concerts is to give the audience someone that they know, and then they're like, oh, great, Sheku Kana Mason is coming, we will all go. And that's brilliant. And so with online music, people actually have the potential to develop an audience for themselves in like everywhere. So they could, in theory, tour around, and people everywhere would know who they were. And I think that's a genuine, huge potential there for people to do that. And I don't actually think it's limited either. I don't think there's only a certain number of people who could do that, and then suddenly the market will be saturated and then that's too much. I genuinely believe that that's an unlimited opportunity.
Yeah, and I think there's one benefit to it as well, that it's about anxiety and risk, because I think the arts and the performing arts, they're absolutely riddled with anxiety. Performers are anxious about their performances. You know, you say, Christos, is that my style? If I don't do what they were doing, does that mean there's no place for me? I thought that really resonated with me. Is there no place for me? So that happens with performance. It's anxiety is a huge part of it. Audiences are anxious. We're all talking about expanding audiences, and then we present them with this like concert hall experience, and it's sort of, I haven't been before. Will I wear the right clothes? Will I clap in the wrong place? You know, if I get a sweetie out of my, if I get a candy out of my bag, am I going to be stoned to death and dragged out the hall by my ankles? All those kind of things, and all those kind of things. The virtual setting, the virtual platform actually mitigates against that. So I think that's hugely valuable. It actually allows people to be in a more comfortable environment. I mean, Katie and I are both involved with whole chamber music. And last year, at the end of the year, we did one of our regular concerts, and we also got the same performers to do a relaxed concert. And the idea was children could be there, people who had particular physical needs that couldn't necessarily be quiet, needed to move about or vocalise. And it was the most wonderful concert, because you didn't allow those small things to bother you, because you kind of tuned into that was the convention of that environment. And it was just as wonderful as sitting in perfect silence in a nice frock, listening to the same performance. And I think that's hugely important, and that's going to be very helpful, very, very helpful. And the other thing I think that's really important is that, we've been talking quite seriously, but not only seriously. And one of the problems with COVID is so much of the joy has gone out of us. So much of the joy has gone out of our lives because of the loss of music. And, I feel myself getting quite emotional saying this, but these virtual platforms are a chance to actually bring some of that joy back. So it brings some of that sheer joy in playing music ourselves, seeing other people, experiencing other people having the joy of performance, and that shared, that collaborative experience of listener and player, and that joyful collaborative experience that's been missing for months. And this is a way to actually bring some of the joy back, because it's easy to lose sight of that, I think, because we're also worried about everything, that we need to rediscover the joy.
I can't agree more. And to me, what also is making the virtual stage stand out, and that is its ability to cross barriers, not geographic barriers, cultural barriers, and obviously, of course, language barriers, because musicians speak the same language, but that's been around forever. But what virtual platforms allows to cross the oceans, cross the governmental barriers. We had musicians join virtual concert halls performances from behind Chinese firewall, and that was an incredibly touching experience to them, to be able to be part of the community across the world, which they would not be able to reach unless they are very rich people to purchase the tickets, even without COVID. And for us too, to experience how actually close people are when they speak musical language, how much closer and how much more the same we feel, because the concert hall, I gotta say, and I probably will be criticized for that, I gotta say that the conventional concert hall dehumanizes the artists and the audience to some extent, and makes this just much harder than the virtual platform for people to connect on a personal level. And music is just such a personal experience for both the artist and the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I've had musicians, both obviously in-person group music, it can be a very healing experience for the musician and the audience. I find myself going, it's okay to applaud between movements. You can express appreciation. You don't have to repress your natural impulse to appreciate. Maybe appreciate in silence, maybe appreciate, but either way, that relaxation to feel like you can be who you are, everyone can be who they are together, the music can be what it is, and we can receive that and appreciate that. And musicians, there's a wonderful musician who's played a lot of group music who basically said, this has been a profoundly healing experience for me during this time. And his roommate, who they both were touring musicians, said, I've been a roommate with this person for 2 years, and this is the most time we've spent together and made music together, and we're so grateful we can share it with all of you. And that ability to the human need, Margaret, as you're saying, for that connection, for that joy, it can be a profoundly healing experience at this time to be able to share that with people, and that's what we're able to do. So it's really, I feel a lot of gratitude really for this medium.
And I want to ask all of you, you're offering quite remarkable prizes to the contestants in the Sound Espressivo competition. And what is the motivation behind offering those prizes to the contestants who will be participating?
Well, I had to have the model explained to me a couple of times when I first signed up for this, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in a few months' time. I don't know what I'm going to be able to commit to, and so that. But then when I understood it, radical as it is, my motivation was partly that. Partly that it would almost be rude not to support such a progressive and thoughtful and kind of enriching and like opportunity widening competition, and that it was something that I wanted to be involved in. And partly, if it's okay to say that like I kind of have nothing to lose, but this is only going to benefit me. It's only going to benefit people who I offer prizes to. And the flexibility of it, allows for the uncertainty of a 3-woman band not knowing what they're going to be doing in a few months, and being able to respond to what they and being able to respond to what we're presented with. And I think that can only be beneficial for the contestants, because it'll be a genuine match. So I'm not sure if that's a good answer, but that is the answer.
I'm going to follow up a little bit on Kitty sharing. Okay, this is true. I remember approaching you, Kitty, and with the offer to, would you be interested to offer some prizes for this competition? And your answer immediately was, yes, what do I need to offer? And then there was a few back and forth, kind of forming. And I have to say the concept is in the development. It's not a set in stone concept. We're working on something new. So it's growing with every person who participates in it. And a lot of your questions actually shaped what the prizes are like and what the participation of the companies is like. And one of the important things was in our conversation, we were talking about the managers feeling, again, being confined to a small space with lots of rules, where you have to offer a rigid set of prizes without knowing who is going to receive them and without having any control over it. You're basically giving a prize, an opportunity to an unknown winner who is picked by 3-4 judges of that particular competition. What if you happen to disagree? Just like Christos said, what if I happen to disagree with conventional way of playing this particular piece? I have no place in there. And for managers to be stuck with that commitment and potentially have to promote and work with a musician who doesn't fit their module, doesn't fit their philosophy, is a daunting proposition. And that's how we shaped the prizes here. The managers, the 3 people you are all watching, sharing with you, are the people who will be deciding and choosing the recipients of the prizes. We don't call the recipients of the prizes winners of the prizes. The winners of the competition conventionally will be determined by the judges panel. But winning a competition doesn't necessarily mean advancing the career. That's the reality of life. Yeah. And we as musicians had gone through that. Winning competitions and getting nowhere, and not winning competitions and getting a lot of offers to perform. So we wanted the competition to really truthfully represent the real life situation for performing artists and managers, because in the end, managers and the audience decide which concerts are going to go. Not so much the competitions. Competition is a platform, a workshop, a job fair. Yeah, Margaret.
It's surprising how many times. Obviously, the Leeds piano competition is hugely it's probably our biggest piano competition in the UK. It's surprising how many times that the pianist who's come second is the one that's actually gone on and had the career. So, and I think it's quite important not to make it feel it's not you won it and therefore consequently you failed. And I think that's really important to mitigate against that, which I think you're actually doing. You're working very hard, not to have that simple trope of yes, good, bad, guilty. Yes, bad cellist.
Yeah, you chose modernly, just newly written piece, and that's happened to disagree with the aesthetics of it. So you're a bad cellist, therefore.
Yeah.
And not in the Sound Espressivo competition. Here, there is an innovation category. You have your heart in a place with a very experimental music. Come on board and pick to be nominated for innovation category. And the good thing about that, the judges also get to pick their category to judge. If someone sees themselves as a performer and an educator in the aesthetics of virtuosity, there you go. We have virtuoso category. So the virtuoso contestants will be judged by virtuoso artists. They will be able to speak the same language. Instead of arguing what's more important in the performance of a Beethoven sonata, virtuosity, grandeur, or that one lyrical phrase. We're trying to avoid those kind of discussions and focus on, okay, for virtuosity, who represents the spirit of that best.
I think what you've done, Anna, is you've created something that has your kind of ethos behind it. And I know you said there are lots of people developing it and so on, but it just pours out of everything you're doing. And I'm genuinely surprised to hear that I had any role in shaping how the prize thing worked, because it felt to me as though it was like, no, we've thought it all through. This is how it's going to be.
I'm a mirror. I'm talking to you. Seriously,
I feel though that the fact that everyone wants everyone to do well and wants there to be a kind of a collaborative and I don't know, picking words out of the air here, but a warm and constructive competition environment. It's as though everything that's coming into this competition emanates that, which I just think is really wonderful.
So what do you look for in contestants? How do you plan to choose who to award the prizes to? I didn't promise easy questions, guys.
No, it's all right.
That wasn't part of the deal.
Well, don't look at me. Don't look at me.
I'm going to let Margaret choose.
I'm a bass player. If I get on the platform without falling down, I think I've won at life, basically.
I'm happy to respond.
Yeah, I think Chris, you should take that.
As we're talking about moving away from this win-lose to, say, a win-win environment, right? I think for me, since I'm a musician who, wished that this mentality has been more prevalent my whole life, particularly when I was younger and didn't want to take piano lessons because of, I guess, just intuiting this trajectory of being stuck in the box. I think I will be most responsive or most interested in people who are able to trust in themselves, in their own craft, in their own love for their commitment to their craft, but can share it in a way that one teacher said something really brilliant of that, true art has the absence of aggression towards oneself, where you're in conflict with your relationship to your craft, and aggression towards others of needing to prove and impose something on them. And I think it's a rare artist that somehow has either healed themselves or never been traumatized, or whatever it is. Somehow they've stayed true to that connection. And I think the most brilliant artists that we come back to again and again, there's something about them. There's something there that somehow connects with that. And so that's still kind of an abstract way of looking at it, but I think that I'll be looking kind of on feeling this person and feeling if they're able to take you there. And if they're not, it's not a judgment, because it's an invitation for everyone. Because I feel like if someone sees someone who's doing that, it'll hopefully have the opposite effect that the, oh, he's so good kind of thing did, where it's more like an invitation for us all to come into ourselves. And so that quality, whatever we want to call it, is I think what I'll be particularly sensitive to and inspired by if I see.
And just to outline potential scope of the prizes the Group Muse may award. Of course, the prize depends on the actual artist or artists you will choose. I understand that you'll be shaping it more individually, but just outline.
Yeah, basically what we can offer is our platform. And so we and also I've been doing a lot of musician onboarding, so I can help with a lot of technical guidance. We have a lot of tutorials. I usually do one-on-one sessions, so I could offer several of those to get somebody up to speed on how they can best utilize their setup. It's sort of what I've been doing, here in my little rabbit hole I've gone down, and I can help share that. And the platform itself, we do have something that we offer somewhat regularly, which is called the Spotlight series, and it's just when we want to basically, most of the time on the platform musicians perform, they have to do their own marketing, so on and so forth. But if there's a particular musician, like we're going to do Richard Stoltzman in November out of Boston here, and we'll basically announce that to our entire network. So what we'll do is we'll give you the opportunity to have a Spotlight concert where we will, to get you going on the platform, we'll send it out to our entire network, and hopefully that can help boost your virtual career. But also hopefully connect with the right people, like we were saying. It's just a good way to amplify your presence in this new ecosystem that we're creating together. So that's, I think that's what comes up for us, is what we can offer.
Phenomenal. Can I apply to Sound Espressivo and win the prize?
Yeah, really.
Like that?
I think
You
about
can be a
judging.
judge and apply and choose yourself.
I think
No, I
they're usu-
can't. You're choosing the prize winner.
I think there are usually disclaimers on the applications. Going back to judging, I always feel that because competitions are, they are problematic. We do understand that, that they are problematic. I think it's important for judges to go in primarily with an attitude that they're benign, they're generous, and they're kind. And that when you're listening to performers as a judge, what you should be doing is listening for the things that are you can value and give credit to in the performance. And you should be proceeding always from that position. You should always proceed from that position. Then when you should come to it with a positive view, to find the positive. You can still then decide your winners, you can still decide a winner from among that, but it should be a positive within positives, if you see what I mean.
I think there's a really poisonous attitude around in music sometimes, that is that in order to demonstrate that we understand what really great quality is, we have to be disparaging about anything that isn't that. And I really despise that whenever I come across
God,
it.
yeah.
There's nothing like bringing people down because they happen not to be as good as other people. That's just... I think,
or not as similar to some artificial standard.
Well, exactly. I mean, the example I often think of is that as a singer, I've been to a really fantastic singing summer school called Oxenford International in Scotland several times as a sort of young and student singer, and you get how that's structured. Is a really fantastic program run by absolute leading musicians, and you get a combination of young professional and kind of college singers and local amateurs from Scotland who also come every year and do it all the time, and the students kind of come in and out and go through. And so in one masterclass with someone like Malcolm Martineau who runs it, you will get the next Ferrier Prize winner, and then after that you'll get a lady from Edinburgh who's never been or going to be a professional singer. And I've always felt that in that situation your ear just adjusts. Like, it doesn't mean that you don't know that there's a difference between the two of them, but you maybe the first time the second lady sings, you think, that's different, and this is why that's different, and then you just forget, and you just enjoy what she's doing, and then the feedback is, and that's the nature of the feedback that the people get at this course as well. And I just have always thought of that when I'm thinking about competition, and I've also thought of that in the context of online music making as well, because we do know that it's different from live music, but I think we adjust. I think we just, same as if we're listening to the radio, we go, okay, we're in this space now, and we just adjust to it.
So what will you be mostly, I'm sorry, so what you would be mostly looking for in the contestants? I'm just genuinely trying to help our contestants win your guys' prizes, because the prizes are just so good. Give us the insight, how to win the prize with your company.
I think being of an organisational mind, I'm quite likely to be looking for good pairings between the prizes that I can offer and the people that are there. And so a lot of the services that I offer are kind of online courses or kind of processes that you can go through to develop as an artist, or to develop a certain part of your maybe marketing or your business side of your work. And so I think that in that sense, I have a lot to offer in terms of seeing somebody who might need that. I think it's often clear, isn't it, that somebody can be a really great artist and they need those other things. I always joke when I'm talking to prospective clients on the organisational side of things that I do all the stuff that everyone else hates, because I know how to manage charities and like do bookkeeping and all that kind of thing. But it's true, and so I think in that sense, I'm going to be looking for people who, essentially anyone who inspires me and who I think if I can add something to what they have to build on their performance ability and make that a more well-rounded career going forward, then that's what I'll be looking for. Which sounds vague. I realise I'm saying this and it sounds vague.
Yeah, but I think I understand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very clear. So if I'm entering the competition, I'm going to aim at first winning Kitty's heart, because she's going to teach me how to make the most out of my winning Christos's heart. Because then I'll come to Group Muse platform equipped with knowing better how to connect and how to make the most from the connections and how to expand my career through those connections, not exploit, but how to connect with new people who are coming into my life in a way which is more productive to to give my art. As an artist, I always want to give. It's just, hey guys, who is out there who's willing to take? So, and Katie is going to teach me how to give, right? and Christos is going to give me a huge platform and opportunity to give it to people. Yep. And I would like to just close with a very quick closing, not a statement, just advice to people who will be participating in the competition. And we have, of course, contestants, they're teachers and mentors. And we have some contestants who are professional artists already. They're not students anymore. And and we have very young students, contestants who applied already. And so the teachers and maybe mentors, and to the judges and other fellow managers who are part of the competition. So we'll start with Christos, you, and then go to Katie and go to you, Margaret.
Sure. So just some, I guess, advice. Okay. As I was saying, what I really want to encourage is, just as I would with a house concert, as a Group Muse house concert, where a musician might say, well, what should I play? And I say, well, play what you really resonate with. Play what helps you tell a story. Play something that makes you feel connected to maybe how just that feeling of familiarity that from when you were even a child, and maybe your instrument, you just felt like, this is me. This is something that feels like me. What pieces, whether they're pieces that you could, maybe even pieces you've composed, but that allow you to create a sense of continuity between the deepest connection you have to your art and being able to share that in a way that, you feel like really embodies just your love of your craft and your gratitude for it. And if you share that, then I'll probably be inspired.
Thank you so much, Christos. And Katie, your advice?
Sure. So my advice, if I can start with judges and teachers, and I know that the people involved in this competition will already be completely on board with this, is to create a safe space in which performers and contestants can feel able to show their true selves and their true potential and artistry. And my advice to contestants is to just enjoy it, be excited, be carried away in it, and feel safe to give everything that you have to offer.
Thank you. Those are such timeless advices, Margaret.
Yes, I think I've already echoed what Katie said in terms of the judging, in terms of being generous and looking for the positive. What I would say to contestants is that I know competitions seem to be a platform for, in effect, showing off. But don't think about impressing. Think about revealing yourself. Don't think about the competition as the end of a learning process. The competition in itself is a learning process. And if you have an engagement with your art and you have the humility to understand that every performance is a learning process, and you have the ability to reveal yourself as an active, engaging, learning artist, even in the process of performing, then I think that's the kind of thing that will really strike a chord with the judges.
Thank you all so much. And I want to say this was incredibly enriching and learning experience for me. To hear your answers and to feel the warmth and the deep thought and the extraordinary support which you have for fellow artists and for yourself. I think it's extremely important to note that each of our guests exudes the love for the things they do, and that is really it's what makes every artist a rich and a successful one. I believe in that. And with that, I would like to thank you, Christos, Katie, and Margaret. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for a wonderful conversation. It's been terrific. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And many thanks to our audience, to our judges and contestants, and to the incredible team of Virtual Concert Halls, which provides us with the virtual stage and ability to connect in this new environment, this new way. And see you again. Bye.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressivo Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.